All right, good morning, everyone. Everyone joining us here in person, and then everyone who is joining us on Zoom. Welcome to our second day of the week for our tutorings. So today is going to be kind of a continuation of what we had going on Monday. We're going to be using the same slides that are on PowerPoint. I uploaded those onto Google Slides for you guys. I uploaded to Google Classroom, I'm sorry. I uploaded them to Google Classroom, and then you should have received an email from me yesterday with the two recordings from the last sessions, as well as access to the file on Google Drive as well if you weren't able to join Google Classroom. So we're gonna continue with those same problem sets that we did last time. Just in case there's anyone new joining us, we have a couple of brief information I want to share with you guys. So first is our Instagram. We're posting on there every single day a different SAT question that you guys can like pause the question, try it out, and then one of our tutors can explain to you guys the question. We also post different reels related to the SAT, college admissions, a lot of really great content. If you do not yet follow us on Instagram, you guys can scan the QR code and follow on Instagram. We'll also be updating there like any information pertaining to the tutoring. So anything related to like new events and things. Speaking of which, this Friday from 9 to 12, I'm gonna be connected on Zoom for office hours, right? So it's gonna be basically a time where like you can drop in for 10 minutes and just like ask any questions you have about college, about the SAT, about anything in general. You guys can like log into Zoom and like I'll try to like go one-on-one with you, right? So anytime from 9 to 12, you guys can drop in. And that'll be this Friday, and then I'll do them throughout the summer. Depending on availability, there's some Fridays I can't, but this is a great opportunity to get more one-on-one help, especially more related to stuff that we have a little bit less time to talk about. And with college related stuff, and then if you have SAT questions, that would also be a good time to ask those things, right? So that would be this Friday from 9 to 12 using this same Zoom, okay? So again, boot camps are running for Mondays and Wednesdays. We've got it into a rhythm now. So 9 to 12, you can come in person, you can join us on Zoom, or some of you might be watching us on the recording. So just make sure we will be off next week. So there's no classes next week. We'll be back the week after that. So July 6th or 7th, something like that is the date. Google Classroom. So this is gonna work if you have a collegiate email address. If you don't have a collegiate email address, then you won't be able to join Google Classroom. But this is the code. If you don't have a collegiate email address, make sure that you're receiving my emails. So my emails, it's FabioFabiani@matteracademy.com. So you should be receiving emails from me. I sent yesterday the kind of like the recap, like I said. So I'll be sending like the slides, for example, at the beginning of every week, and then the Zoom link and things like that to your emails as well. Like so, Google Classroom, like everything I post on Google Classroom, I'm going to be sending to your email as well. So that's important. And then team applications again. We're looking for people to join our team to be social media ambassadors, to work with our new blog that we're starting, and then also with our digital designers with our website and graphic design stuff. If you're interested in joining our team, you could be virtual, remote. We'll make it work. You have until this I think it's Monday, until this upcoming Monday at 11:59 to fill out applications. We'll in the application it asks you for like a sample of work you might have done, or like and then some questions about ideas you might have to help EqualScore grow. We really look forward to seeing those applications. We already had a couple of people apply, so if you're interested, there is a QR code, and then you will be able to also look at our Instagram page and apply through Instagram. Okay, so today we're gonna do a continuation of what we did last time, right? So we're gonna start off with the reading room is going to stay in the main room. So if you're on Zoom, we're not gonna do the breakout thing today. We're just gonna stay in the main room, okay? So we'll do breakout rooms like after for the second portion. So or never mind. You guys are gonna stay where you are. So you guys are gonna stay in the main room for the entire time. I'm gonna open a breakout room, but do not join the breakout room. All right, and then I'll leave you here with the reading room is gonna be taking over the main room. All right. All right, I'll see you guys in a few minutes when we switch.
Hi, good morning, guys.
It's not now.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm just. I just, oh. What are these things? I don't know what are these.
Babe.
Very much. Sure.
Like, now we're talking about it, now we don't have any.
Awesome. I don't have a reason. And then over. And. But.
Wait.
Make that big. Loose. You have to select this thing, you have to select the thing, put it up. Full screen. Alright, I don't know what it's called. Where is the screen? It's. Go back. It's behind you. Go another way, over there, go another way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so, good morning, everyone. Today we're gonna switch it up, but at the same time, like, keep it the same as what we did last time. We just wanna ensure and like reinforce that we're okay with inferences, but we wanna switch it up and not start with inferences again. So today we're gonna do, I think it's like 5 questions on vocabulary. Just to, reinforce. Just to reinforce, what we know, something that we can learn. Maybe like one SAT vocab word a day, maybe you learn something that you didn't know before, okay? So we're gonna give you like last warm up we're gonna give you time, like write it down or just, keep it in your mind. And then we'll probably just like choose one of you guys to answer, okay? Try to give you like 2 minutes per question.
We also wanna show you guys kind of like the strategies when you approach vocab because we wanna kind of just like. Show you that you don't need to know every single word on like the answer choices to be able to figure a vocab question out. So we wanna get you guys used to kind of that strategy side of it. Are we ready to just?
Yep.
Well, alright. That's the first. We're gonna give you guys like 1 to 2 minutes-ish, depending on the question, and we'll just like come back. We'll move on automatically when like the time is up. And then if you didn't finish, that's fine, make a guess and move on, and then we'll call on you guys after to kind of see where you guys, where you're headed at. Alright guys, time is up. Since that was an easy question, we're just gonna move on. And yeah,
Yes.
so the answer here was C. And then here's the next question. We'll give you another 2 minutes. We're gonna go over the explanations as to why each answer was like what you guys are gonna see, but we just kind of want you guys to get used to the like question answer format that we already had from last time for anyone that's new. That's how all questions are gonna look, the ones that we do, so that you guys have the College Board explanation and ours. But like, don't worry, we are going to explain to you guys why the answer is C, and for all these questions, why the answer is what it is. So don't stress too much. Again, 1 to 2 minutes. Alright guys, that was another easy question, so we're gonna be moving on. And the answer should have been D if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it's D. We're gonna go over it later, right? Yeah, we're gonna go over it later, so don't stress too much if you didn't get it right. Alright, here's the next question. This was a medium difficulty, so 2 minutes still? Yeah. Alright, so you're gonna have 2 minutes, maybe even 3. And yeah. Alright guys, I hope you guys finished, because we did, so the answer here is D, an extraordinary. Yeah, an extraordinary, just because it's singular, so we're also gonna go over that later, I assume. Alright, here's the next question, 2 minutes again. Good luck, guys.
Hi guys, some of you guys seem done. You guys, the camera's off, so I don't know, but yeah, on to the next. Here the answer would be. Alright, this one's a hard difficulty, so we'll give you 3 minutes. So yeah. Alright guys, that was the last boring question. Now we're on to actual explanations. So for this one, the answer was B. Yeah, so we're gonna skip this one and we're on to the next one.
Where are you going?
I don't know, it's
Guys, it's his first day and he's a little lost TBH, but
No, it was back. I went the wrong way.
there were 2 ways to go. Guys, this man, like, he's not on it right now, but it's okay, don't worry. So, okay, so this was our first question, wait. Get out the way. So this is our first question, we're gonna be splitting, we're gonna be alternating, it's gonna be like me and then sometimes Louis, sometimes Kim. So just like, if you see a little switch up, don't fret. So our first one is a very simple vocab question, this is difficulty 1, and I don't wanna really like waste your guys' time on it, so. We have a paragraph here, it says Charles Teeny Harris, again, like most of the names that you're gonna see on the SAT are like pretty much irrelevant. So don't like stress, like in this case it was fine, but if you see one that's like just crazy long name, that's foreign, don't stress. So Charles Teeny Harris was a photographer for the Pittsburgh Courier from 1936 and 1975. During his career, he took over 70,000 photographs documenting everyday life in Pittsburgh's Black communities. The Carnegie Museum of Art maintains thousands of his photographs, carefully blanked them so that audiences can continue to view them well into the future. Okay, so when you have a question like this, I'm gonna signal something really quickly to you guys. A lot of the difficulty 1 questions are gonna have this like common thread, which is they're going to quite literally give you the definition somewhere in the paragraph. So for a lot of the medium and hard difficulties, it's gonna be more of like a suggestion, like they're kind of like gonna hide it a little bit, they're gonna insinuate it. But for a lot of these kinds of questions, the easier ones, they're gonna pretty much tell you, right? And that'll be through either a synonym, a cause and effect relationship, or sometimes both. So here, you're gonna see both, okay? So, and I'm gonna show you guys why. So, can anyone tell me, just like, so we know, what you put for this question, and I'm gonna kind of like piggyback off of that. So let's see. I wanna ask someone that I didn't ask last time, so can we ask, Gabriel, please, to unmute and kind of tell me what you think? Yes, no, maybe so.
I don't
Huh?
understand.
Can you talk a little louder? I can't really hear you.
I don't understand.
Okay, you don't understand that question. Okay, well, that's perfectly fine. Can we have somebody else unmute and kind of tell us like what you thought? So maybe, I know I called on you last time, but we'll do it again. Why not? We'll do a repeat. Carolina, what did you think about this question? What'd you put?
I put C.
Preserve, okay, so you are correct. I know that we went over the answers, which is why I'm not gonna like. Stress about like what you put for these too much. We're gonna get more into that when we do like the actual practice inference questions. But what I wanna show you guys with this answer, preserve, right? If we go back to the paragraph, it says. The Carnegie Museum of Art maintains thousands of its photographs carefully, blank. So that audiences can continue to view them well into the future. The reason that this is a really easy question is because in cases like this, you have both a synonym. And you're gonna have some kind of relationship to show you what this word is kind of supposed to do. So if you are trying to do something, so let's say that you have this like really valuable piece of jewelry. And you wanna make sure that a lot of people can see it in the future, what are you gonna do to it, right? You're gonna protect it, you're gonna save it, you're gonna wanna make sure that other people are able to view it in the same condition that you did. And then if we go to this little keyword, we have maintains, which matches what this word is gonna be, and if we go over here, the only word that makes sense in the context, so you wouldn't wanna replace something if you wanna see it in the future. You wouldn't wanna invent something new if we're talking about maintaining like something of the past, like a relic. And then we're not gonna count something at all if we wanna, preserve it, that just is kind of irrelevant in this context. So again, even if you didn't know what these words meant, you could have either done context clues from the paragraph itself, or you could have kind of done a process of elimination. So those are like the two kind of major ways to approach an easy vocab question like this. So now we're gonna move on, and like I said before, the answer for this one was C, so Karina, you got it correct. And yeah, so anyone want to?
Hi guys, this is the next question is also easy difficulty. Yeah, it's that annotation. It is also easy difficulty, as you guys can see. So first, to start off with, we're gonna read it. So following the principle of community-based participatory research, tribal nations and research institutions are equal partners in health studies conducted on reservations. A collaboration between the Crow tribe and the Montana State University link this model. Tribal citizens work alongside scientists to design the methodology and continue to assist in data collection. So, alright, so first to start off with kind of dissecting the little paragraph. So here it says tribal nations and research institutions are equal partners in health studies and conducting reservations, right? So this is like pretty much saying a fact, right? A collaboration between the Crow tribe and Montana State University. This like blank this model. So does anyone wanna speak on what word could fill in the blank here to make this sentence make sense? So what's something that pretty much something this model? The model being what I understand here, the tribal nations and research institutions are equal partners in health studies conducted on reservations. If nobody volunteers, I can randomly pick someone. Abraham, something in it.
Girl. Krishna.
Krishna.
I put D.
Exemplifies. I very much agree with that answer, because yes, this model is being like exemplified by the Montana State University and Crow tribe. If they're doing it, so it's exemplifying it.
Alright, hi, how you doing? I'm gonna step in for a sec. So, we just kind of wanted to change things up for you guys, that was what we call the comedy part of the tutoring. So I'm back. So, let me just show you guys really quickly. So when you're gonna see, like, when you see a paragraph like this, sometimes there are going to be kind of, what I call like the general to specific questions, okay? So in a case like this, we have a general statement. So we're saying that there are tribal nations and research institutions, which are equal partners, and health studies conducted on reservation. So this is like a general fact, right? But then we have an example of this. So they're saying the Crow tribe of Montana State, So notice how these are specific institutions. These are specific like universities, specific organizations that are partnering. So this is an example of that, okay? So when you have a vocab question, you want to look at relationships. So in the last one that we did, it was kind of like a cause and effect that helped us figure it out. In this case, it's a like a general to specific, so an example, right? So we're looking for how this is an example of that, right? And I want to kind of like bring you guys back to that idea of like the roots, so like the roots of a word, right? So for example, when you have circumvents, right? So circumvents think circle, right? So when you circumvent something, think you're going around, you're navigating in a circle, right? That doesn't really sound like an example. That doesn't really sound like, you're going deeper into something, you're revisiting, like that sounds more like anything revisiting, or maybe you're avoiding the circumstance, right? So you wanna think of these like roots to help you figure out words that you don't know. Maybe some of you know what circumvent means, but for those that don't, you would think, okay, well, going in a circle, going around, it doesn't really seem like the right fit. So we're gonna move on. Eclipses. Let's say you don't know what this word means outside of like a literal solar eclipse, right? But think, okay, what happens in a solar eclipse? Something goes over something covers something. Lunar eclipse, again, same thing, something covers something else. This is not an example of us trying to cover this model. We're not trying to hide it. We're not trying to, not use it to get rid of it, right? We're trying to show an example of it. So that's, another one that's just kind of dumb, right? Based on context clues of the word roots. We go to fabricates. So if you don't know what, so some words, you're gonna kind of see that they're very similar to Spanish. So for those of you that know Spanish, like another kind of like Roman language, you're gonna want to also draw those connections. So if you don't know what fabricates means, you're gonna think of something like fabricar, right? You're making something new, right? So when you're thinking fabricates, you're gonna want to think of making something up. So you're like lying in some way, shape, or form, you're trying to cover something up, you're trying to like hide using something else, okay? So think kind of like playing pretend. And if you didn't know what that meant, you would think, okay, Spanish, making something new. You aren't making something new from this model. You aren't changing this model in any way. You're trying to show an example of it. And then you go to the last one, you see exemplifies. Well, exemplifies sounds like the word example. It literally, it sounds like if you're saying, oh, this exemplifies this, you're kind of thinking, okay, well, it does fit, like grammatically it's correct. But then also, it kind of sounds like, okay, you're showing something off. Right, you're exhibiting an example of something, you're showing an instance of something, and that's precisely what this relationship is. This relationship is saying, okay, this is a broad thing, and this sentence here is showing an example. And this literally shares a root with example. So that's how I would approach this question. And I'm sure you guys probably found it easy too. We just want to make sure that you're really understanding how to approach vocab when you don't know it. Because again, guys, I'm gonna be honest. A lot of these questions become 10 times easier if you know the words already. Like, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what the vocab like section of the SAT, like that's what people think you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to memorize these like 1,000-word lists and figure it out that way. But the truth about the SAT is that they're kind of trying to figure out how you approach like a book or a paper if you don't know the word. That's how they want you to approach it. They don't want you to know it like based off of facts and oh, I know what this word means exactly, and it's not that. So don't, be too hard on yourself if you don't immediately recognize something, okay? Kimberly, you wanna take over for this one? Take over.
Okay. Okay. So this is a medium difficulty question. So now we start, maybe not a biggest question, but this is where we start kind of dabbling into words that you wouldn't really know. Maybe there could be just one or two words that you're not really knowledgeable about, but let's just read the question. So, the following text is adapted from Nathaniel Hawthorne's 1837 story, Dr. I wouldn't even know how to say that, experiment. The main character, a physician, is experimenting with rehydrating a dried flower. At first, the rose lay lightly on the surface of the fluid, appearing to imbibe none of its moisture. Soon, however, a singular change began to be visible. The crushed and dried petals stirred and assumed a deepening tinge of crimson, as if the flower were reviving from a death-like slumber. As used in the text, what does the phrase "a singular" most merely mean? Who can tell me what singular means?
Gabriel, you wanna give it a shot?
No, not Gabriel, Maria. Maria, can you like chat it or unmute yourself if you'd like? Maybe you're not even here. Sophia? Sophia Bird. I don't really know how to say that. Nobody here? Okay, you know what? I'll go with Sahara. I know you're here. I know you got my back.
The answer to the question is an extraordinary.
Okay, and why do you think that is? Can you explain to me your thought process?
Well, like in this case, like for me, the other ones, I tried to put it into the sentence, like changing that word for the other ones, and it didn't really make sense to me. Cause like soon a lonely change began to be visible didn't really like I didn't really like it didn't really fit into the sentence. So I just go by process of elimination by using the other words. And when those don't work, I picked an extraordinary because it was the only one that made sense in the context of the sentence.
Perfect, so you're correct, it is an extraordinary, both side of the answer choice. So absolutely, that's one way to go about it. Always plug it in, if it makes sense, you know, most likely than not, it's gonna be the correct answer, okay? Let's try to just see more so using definitions, why it is D and not A through C, okay? So, let's see, lonely. They're describing a change. A change cannot be lonely. You know, we're not placing some sort of condition on a flower, you know, unless this were like fiction, but it's not. So a flower can't be lonely, okay? So definitely lonely would not be possible in this context because we cannot place a sort of condition on a flower, you know? Had it been a person, that could have been, you know, another circumstance. So B, disagreeable. There's nothing disagreeable about this. It's just an experiment, okay? A change in a flower's, you know, appearance or physical appearance cannot be disagreeable. And then C, unacceptable. I mean, oh, I'm sure this change is acceptable, obviously. There's nothing in this three sentences that really emphasizes that this flower's change is acceptable or not, okay? Specifically, if we're looking at singular, nothing from the word singular could ever mean acceptable, you know? When we think singular, we think one, okay? Obviously, that's the first thing you think of. You think one, you think, okay, so one, it's obviously extraordinary because, you know, we think one, we think, you know, unique, we think just unlikely to be repeated or, you know, you're one in the whole world, okay? So it would definitely be extraordinary. This change is extraordinary, and even then, when they come to just describe the change in the next sentence, you can just tell that this is just such a deep change that, you know, Nathaniel Hawthorne is gonna categorize as extraordinary. He's not gonna categorize this as lonely. There's nothing lonely about this, you know, change of the color and if it's reviving from a death-like slumber, none of that. So the answer in this case would be B. Do we all get that? Yes. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, this is the, you know, explanation that College Board provides, so if you didn't really, you know, understand it the first time, you could read that, or we're gonna move on. Okay, so let's do this one, and I'm pretty sure this is our last question before we move on to our practice. So, it reads, during a 2014 archaeological dig in Spain, Vicente Lung and his team uncovered the skeleton of a woman from El Algar, an early Bronze Age society, buried with valuable objects signaling a high position of power. This finding may persuade researchers who have argued that Bronze Age societies were ruled by men to blank, that women may have also held leadership roles. What do we think? Anyone, if you want to chat it, if you want to mute yourself.
B.
What was that?
Is B.
B. It is B. Yes. Can you tell me why you think it's B?
Is B because it talks about how the researchers learned that the women basically also might have had like higher positions like men. So it can't be refute because refute's like a counter argument. Require also doesn't make sense. And I just don't know wave. So that's why I picked B.
Your thought process is very reasonable, okay, but we're gonna just go through each answer choice again and just see why they don't work and why B is the correct answer.
Alright.
So concede, let's start with, the correct answer. Concede basically means to like prove something right after it's already been like. After it's already come out as wrong, okay, so we're like changing a opinion, we're shifting an opinion, okay? So then, yes, if we were to plug it into this blank, we're seeing that we are changing an opinion with this finding that this research, that these researchers found. They know that, women could have actually held a position of power as opposed to only men being the rulers. So refute, again, yes, that would be like a counterclaim. And nothing about this is refuting the fact that, women never led, roles, that they were only ruled by men. This is actually going against that and is saying that, yes, like it could have been plausible that women did actually, find themselves in a position of power during this age. Okay, so refute definitely does not make sense. And then let's place required, okay? Nothing about this is, rules by men to require that women may have also held leadership roles. We don't even have to know what the word required means to know that it just doesn't make sense. It does not fit, okay? If you just place it in the sentence, you can tell that that just, has nothing to do with one another. Men did not require that women also held leadership roles. That is not logical whatsoever, okay? But then we know what require means, it's just to like mandate someone, to order someone, does not make sense. And then waive. Waive essentially is to just like come up with something and, how do I say this? It helped me. It's basically like ignore to avoid something.
So wave thing, like I'm sure many of you guys, if you sign up for the SAT, you had to get maybe a code for an SAT waiver, right? So a waiver is something that avoids the fee, right? So when you go to apply for college and you get a fee waiver, it means that you're avoiding the fee to apply to that college. So waive just means kind of stay away from, avoid, they're not avoiding this conclusion.
Right, so avoid would not make sense because, let's just plug it in and let's read it. That Bronze Age societies were ruled by men to avoid, let's just say avoid if we don't know what waive means, to avoid that women may have also held leadership roles. Doesn't make sense. Okay, so that's why the correct answer is going to be concede. Do you have any questions? I'll put up the College Board explanation just in case. Let me do that for 1 second before we move on. Okay. Right, so as I said, concede is you're just saying that something is true after first coming out that it's like entirely incorrect. And then waive, you're refraining from something. Are we?
There's one more. It's the hard one.
Yeah,
Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it?
I thought that was one other thing too.
No, that's number 6, there was 6. There was two per question categories.
I changed the format.
It's included.
But we need to do the hard one, because I remember how we were about this one.
Guys, just for me to kind of make sure, did we do this question? The hard one with like these entrances, do you guys recognize it? Yes, no, maybe so. I'm seeing some nods.
Or you say that.
Okay, yeah, I'm seeing nods, okay. So I wanted to make sure that we go over, even if we didn't do it, just because this is a hard question, and these are the questions that trip most people up, as opposed to like the easy and the medium. Again, we went into detail with those, just so you guys know how to approach a vocab question, but this is more like the ones that you guys are gonna, maybe see and get a little more flustered with, so. I'm gonna, again, try and go a little fast, I'm gonna try and go faster than the other two, but just so you guys know. Okay, so again, this is a difficult question, so if you got a little, if you had a little struggle, don't stress about it too much, so let's take it part by part, okay? So rejecting the premise, so whenever we see something like rejecting, contradicting, opposing, we wanna take note of that in case that the word that we're looking for is related to that. So again, we're looking for relationships when we do vocab questions, so if we're trying to oppose something, we might be looking for some kind of, contradicting word, something like that, so. Rejecting the premise that the literary magazine, Ebony and Topaz should present a unified vision of Black American identity. Editor Charles Johnson fosters contributors' diverse perspectives by promoting their authorial autonomy. Why am I pointing these out? Because these are contradictions. So it's saying that, so this writer right here, Charles S. Johnson, he is disagreeing with this unified vision of Black American identity by writing his own piece that fosters authorial autonomy. So if you don't know what autonomy means, think auto something. So if something's auto, something's automatic, it means it does it itself. So autonomy relates to self-identity, self-will, it means that you regulate your own actions. So it's saying, instead of being unified, he's giving people in his writing, he's giving people their ability to show themselves as individuals. So they're not unified anymore. He's saying Black people, every single Black person is different from another Black person. We're not just one group, we're not just, not everyone agrees, okay? That's what he's saying. Johnson's self-effacement diverged, another keyword here, diverged, from the editorial stances of W.E.B. Du Bois and Alain Locke, whose decision for implications were more blank. Okay, so if you don't know, so I'm gonna kind of ignore the word self-effacement, not because I think it's a particularly crazy word or anything, just because when you see something like this, something like really, really high vocab that you might not know, I wanna show you that you can solve a question without knowing that word, so I'm gonna ignore it for now, okay? So, what's it saying? Again, it's saying that he diverged from what the people in this magazine were saying, and these are just examples of people that were in that magazine, so again, names, don't stress too much, these are just the people here, okay? So which twist completes the text with the most logical and polite word or phrase? I wanna call in someone random, so. Let's see, Gabriel? Not Gabriel, please, the other Gabriel, I already called him. Can you tell us what you've put, if you're here? Maybe you're not here. Ideally out loud, if you can unmute yourself.
Are you talking about me?
I mean, I was talking about the other Gabriel, just because they called on you, but hey, if you're here and you know, and you have an answer, have at it. You can guess if you want, it's up to you.
Yeah, I know the answer. You already showed it. It's B.
You put B. I'm 90% straight that B. Can you tell us why, or was that kind of like, a little guess?
I don't know, man. I never seen or heard of her in my life.
Okay, that makes sense. Did anyone else put B? And if so, can you explain your reasoning? I'm seeing a strong no from Carolina. Carolina, girl, what did you put?
I honestly had no clue. Like I took a
Okay.
wild guess.
Okay, so that's why I wanted to really make sure that we got this question in there, because all these words I know are a little tougher. So I'm gonna break it down for most of you, because I'm sure that if you did put something, it was probably a guess, as it has happened to most of us on the SAT. And I don't wanna, waste your guys' time, so I wanna again kind of show you guys the same strategy that we did before. And the reason I emphasize the strategy of finding word roots, finding prefixes, suffixes that you know in a word that you don't know, is because when you see a question like this, where you're fully blanking out, you have no idea what anything means, you wanna just try and think, okay, what do I know? Okay, so what are we saying here? So we are looking, so in this blank is describing the writing of these people, of W.E.B. Du Bois and Alain Locke, okay? So this thing right here, what it's saying is how was their writing, okay? So I just want you guys to put yourself in their shoes for a second here, right? If you know that you are part of a population, so let's say that I'm Hispanic. And I know that, Colombians are not the same from Cubans, are not the same as Mexicans, are not the same as da. But I'm still choosing and I'm still presenting this idea that's kind of like a lie. So I'm saying like, oh, okay, like, even though people argue this, I'm headstrong, I firmly believe that we, at the end of the day, we're all Hispanic, we're all unified. That means that you're strong in your belief, okay? Because if you're still going out of your way to publish something on the newspaper, even if you have opposition, so even if people are like, oh, I disagree. Like, I'm sorry, I think I'm Cuban, I think I'm different from Mexican, but over there, I think I'm different from Colombian, over there. If you are still choosing to push and to publish something, that means that you believe in it, you're headstrong, okay? Your things like stubborn, okay? So we're looking for something that means that sort of like definition, okay? So we look at proficient. Let's say you don't know what proficient means. So proficient means skilled. Proficient means you have the ability to do something and you have the ability to do it well. Think like something like an expert. And if you don't know what that means, think pro. If I say that you're a pro at something, if I say you're a pro gamer right now, what does that mean? That means you're a really good gamer. That means you're like a professional, right? Think professional. What is a professional? Professional is someone that's really good at something, that has skill, right? So even if you don't know what proficient means, you can break it down. And if you see this part, right, efficient. If you have something that's efficient, it means that it's something that is efficacious, something that has an effect and that has it well, right? So if I break apart this word and have proficient, it's someone that does something well. Okay, so I mean, I'm sure these writers are great writers, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for some word that kind of means like stubborn, they believe in themselves over, like some opposition. Okay, so that doesn't really fit our definition. I'm gonna avoid dogmatic for now because it is the right answer and I want to kind of show it at the end a little more. Ambiguous. Okay. I think we know what ambiguous means, but in case you don't know, it kind of means something that's unclear, something that's foggy, right? And again, let's say I didn't know what that meant. If I think something is ambi, right? So think something like or like am. So the prefix am. Think amphibian, ambivalent. All these words that have am, they mean kind of you're in between something. Okay, so think limbo, right? It's possible that you didn't know that, and it's possible that this was your second option. But let's say that you were unsure. Let's say that you weren't sure what that meant. Let's go to unpretentious. Maybe you don't know what unpretentious means, but you know what pretentious means, right? If I call you pretentious right now, that's saying that you're like, you think you're a little stubborn. It means that you think you're maybe better than someone else. So pretentious thing, maybe you're like holier than thou, you think you're better than someone else, right? And you know that it's not that, because it's not that these writers think that they're better than someone else, it's that they are so like stubborn in their own belief that they think it's still worthy of publication, right? So let me put it dogmatic. Why is that one of you get dogmatic? Because that word is hard. Like, I'm not crazy, guys. Like, I can acknowledge it. If I was looking at this, I probably wouldn't know what that word means either. What I want to signal to you guys is you have to look for these connections. You have to look for these connections. Because if you're in between these two words on the SAT and you have no idea what either of them mean, honestly, it's probably like a 50-50, you get it wrong, you get it right, it's okay. But if you've taken bio, if you guys have taken bio, AP bio, something along those lines, you guys might have heard something called the central dogma. Okay? So when you see something called the central dogma, right? It's like this theory, it's very like it's like very rigid, it's very strict. Right? So when someone's dogmatic, it means that they are very strict with their beliefs. It means that they are resolute, that they believe in what they believe in, that they believe it's worthy of that, it's not saying that you think you're better, it's saying that you believe in yourself, like to a higher extent, like to a really high level. So if I say that someone's dogmatic, it means it don't matter what you say to them, they're gonna keep their opinion. And so that is the word that fills in that blank. Again, this question is hard. But I just kind of wanted to show you guys that even if you get to this point, so even if you eliminate proficient and unpretentious, you are already at a 50% chance of getting this question right. Right? And for the SAT, we want to focus on those easy points, but in case of a question like this, already going to that 50% is putting you in a great spot. So, don't stress too much. If you have any questions, again, like unmute yourself. If you still didn't get it, that's okay. This is the explanation that they give. Again, so they say dogmatic, so believes strongly that their principles and their opinions are true. So that's what I'm saying. So think someone that's like a little stubborn. You can tell them whatever you want to say, but they are gonna ultimately believe in themselves and in their gut. So again, this was a little harder of a question, but this is most likely what you're gonna see. So I didn't wanna just give you guys like easy examples, you know, so. Now we're gonna get back to the actual inferences. The reason that we're gonna be spending more time on this as opposed to like the other stuff that maybe we spend like a class on, is because inferences are a little, I would say they're the most complicated SAT reading question type, because grammar and vocab, once you kind of learn the basics of it, so once you know your prefixes, your suffixes, your basic grammar rules, your roots, they become pretty easy. Except for a few like the question that we just did. Inferences, and for a lot of people, they think it's like a case by case thing, so again, they're like, oh, if I'm better at science, I'll be better at the science questions, but we wanna show you guys that inferences can be a little simple as long as you know what you're dealing with, so. Kimberly, do you wanna do this one or?
Yeah.
Alright, we're gonna do the same exact thing that we did last time, so we're gonna go easy, medium, hard. And again, just, I wanna really make sure you guys know, this is probably the last time that we're gonna be fully covering inferences. We're gonna be switching it up after that, but we just wanted to make sure that you guys were really good with this type of question. Because this is probably the one that's the least straightforward, okay?
Okay. Well, actually, I will read it, but it's gonna wait. Okay, so let's read it. Arthur Conan Doyle's stories about Detective Sherlock Holmes were published between 1887 and 1927. They have inspired countless successful adaptations, including comics, strips, movies, and a television series, Sherlock Holmes, directed by Hayao Miyazaki, who is celebrated for his animated movies. Until 2014, these stories were copyrighted. The right to adapt was only available to those who could afford the copyright fee and gain approval from the copyright holders of Doyle's estate. Some journalists predict that the number of Sherlock Holmes adaptations is likely to increase since the end of copyright means that. Okay, what did we just read? Excuse me. Okay. So we're obviously reading a short little paragraph about Sherlock Holmes and his works and his adaptations. So we've seen that he's had plentiful of successful adaptations, comic strips, movies, and television series. And until 2014, his stories were copyrighted. So only those who could afford the copyright fee and gain approval, could adapt, his works, okay? And journalists are predicting that the number of adaptations is likely to increase since the end of copyright. So now we're looking for what choice is gonna logically complete this text, okay? So let's go again, A through D. A, Doyle's original stories will become hard to find. What do we think? Anyone? Maybe if you wanna type it in the chat. If you don't wanna unmute. Do we think that because, since the end of copyright, his original stories will become hard to find? No, okay, right, you guys are right. Nothing in here says that, his stories will become hard to find after the end of copyright, okay? Nothing in here, ever implies that. I mean, honestly, you think the opposite. You think that, well, I don't know, because copyright has ended, then more people have access to his work. So, maybe some original copies will become more accessible because now we don't have to afford the copyright, we just have access to everything, okay? So A is automatically incorrect. Let's do B. People will become more interested in detective stories than they were in the 1800s. What do we think? Again, you guys can chat, like. Oh guys, I'm trying to see the chat. No, okay. Would any of you like to tell me why not B? Anyone that told me no just now?
I think that it's not gonna be like more famous because they were already creating more and more adaptations. So it's not about it's gonna be more famous. It's just about the amount of adaptation. So it doesn't make sense.
Honestly, nothing says that, people are gonna increasingly become more, interested in the Sherlock Holmes' stories. They were already interested, okay? You see that there were countless successful adaptations. Had there been no interest, these adaptations would have never come to life, okay? So people are already interested, and just because copyright has come to an end does not mean that, more people are gonna become interested. Everyone's interested, okay? So nothing in here implies that there's gonna be a shift in interest from, some low interest in the 1800s to a higher interest, in 2014 when, well, not in 2014, after copyright has ended, okay? So not B. C, producing adaptations will become easier and less expensive. What do we think? Okay, I have some yeses. Absolutely. So, okay, where in the paragraph can we see this? Right off the bat. The right to adapt was only available to those who could afford the copyright fee and gain approval from the strict copyright holders. Okay, that sentence in and of itself gives you the answer. They're telling us that as a result of the 2014 copyrights, the fee, well, obviously, there was a fee developed with Sherlock Holmes' stories. So now, only if you were able to purchase these stories could you have access to his works. And they also tell us that apart from the fee, you could have had the money for the fee, which, was not inexpensive. It was actually pretty costly. But apart from having that money, you also had to get approval from the holders of his work. Okay, so it was just this really complicated process. You had to do two different things to get, to just get his works. And right, so automatically when he ends copyright, what can we infer? That prices are gonna go down, it's gonna be easier to access. So absolutely, it is C. But I still wanna go over D, just in case maybe you were in between C or D. So let's definitely look at D. D says, the former copyright holders of Doyle's estate will return fees they collected. Excuse me.
God bless you.
Even if, okay, let's just say we didn't know C was the answer. Okay? Why do you think it would be D? Do you think D makes a little bit of sense? It makes no sense at all? What do we think? You guys can chat it as well, as we've been doing. No response? Krishna, do you have a response for me? Does D make sense? No sense?
I don't think D makes sense at all in terms of like the context of like the thing.
It doesn't make sense, but let's see why. So nowhere in this short paragraph does it tell us that fees that were once collected are gonna be returned. Okay, I personally don't know if that's how copyright works, but we can't assume anything. It doesn't say anything in the passage, okay? With inference questions, you're always gonna get your answer from the passage. Although you might think, oh, it's asking me to infer, it's asking me to assume. Not really. It's always gonna be in the passage, okay? So maybe we might assume, okay, so since copyright is lifted, everyone's getting their money back, no one has to pay for fees, so I'm getting my money back. That's not what it says in the passage, so that is not the logical answer, okay? The answer is C. Okay, Do we have any questions with this specific question? Are we okay? I'm gonna obviously show the College Board, I'm gonna show the College Board explanation, but I think we're good. Wait, what? Next
clear.
clip.
Okay,
No, that's your recent.
okay, there's a trash can. Clear all around.
Okay, so this is the explanation. Yes. If you guys wanted to go over that for a few seconds, then we're moving on.
Actually, it's.
I
did. Alright. Or you can do it.
Oh, yeah, I'm just gonna like complete it, so you can do like two ones. Stands up there with me. Sorry, guys, just talking to myself. So now we're gonna do yet another easy difficulty question, just to make sure we're really mastering this concept and this specific difficulty, okay? So we're still on easy, take note of that. So let's do it together. It reads, one aspect of in-person shopping that online shopping can't replicate is the opportunity to touch a product before buying it. Does this difference matter? In an experiment, researchers asked one group of participants to touch a mug and a toy, while another group was prohibited from touching the two items. The participants were then asked how much money they paid for the items. People who got to touch the items were willing to pay much more money for them than people who weren't allowed to touch the items. This finding suggests that. Okay? Okay. So let's just, kind of break down what we just read. Okay, so it's telling us that people who shop in person, sorry. Hold there. Wait, further. People who shop in person, they can't touch a product before they purchase it, okay? And we wanna know if this is significant, is this relevant, do we care about this, does this impact purchases in any way, shape, or form? So researchers conducted an experiment, and one group of participants were allowed to touch a mug and a toy, and the other group were prohibited from touching the items, the mug and the toy. So then these same participants were asked how much money they were paying. Okay? Those who touched the items were willing to pay much more than those who weren't allowed to touch the items. Okay, it's basically what we read in a nutshell. So now I'm gonna give this over to Abraham and he's gonna go over the answer choices with you all.
Okay, so I know that we're not gonna really like give you guys time, like 2 minutes or anything to kind of go over these, but I'm just gonna ask as I read every question, do every answer choice. If you guys kind of agree, if we disagree, if we're a little in between, just so I can kind of see where our heads are at. So the first one, people who mainly shop online spend more money every month than people who mainly shop in person do. How do we feel about that answer? Does that seem, okay, I'm seeing a strong no from Evander, from Carolina. Okay, I'm seeing strong no's all around, okay. Can anyone tell me why? Or is that just like an immediate like no from you? Okay, I see Evander raised his hand. Evander, you wanna?
It's the complete opposite. The study is basically saying the people who touch the items, they're the in-person group. The people who don't touch them are the online group. So the fact that the in-person group was willing to pay more is the opposite. So the online group should be the people who weren't allowed to touch it should be paying more if that was true, but that's not true. It's the exact opposite.
Awesome, okay, so that was. Alright, that kind of shocked me, anyways, so for the explanation, I agree, so this first thing gets the relationship wrong, which is what Evander said. And then another thing I wanna kind of like show you guys is sometimes. It kind of like what Kimberly said, where she was like, you know, you would think you have to like make these crazy assumptions on these inference questions, kind of you don't. Right, inference questions are kind of about making a logical conclusion, so they're not gonna have you reaching for the stars, right? So it's like this part over here about spend more money every month, you can't guarantee that, that's not something that you can assume from one set of participants, right? So the SAT is gonna have you reaching for this kind of crazy conclusions, so think about two things wrong, the relationship and kind of this like definitive, like, oh, they probably spend more money, like. There's nothing in the paragraph that would suggest that, especially per month, they're not talking about time frame, okay? So part B. Huh? Sure.
Alright, so part B, the answer here, in-person shopping may make products seem more valuable than they seem only viewed online. So anybody wanna give us their opinion on this answer choice?
I'm seeing a thumbs up from
I'm seeing a thumbs
Evander.
up from Lavender, anyone else have an opinion on this?
Yes,
Yes.
Milanda.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alright, guys,
okay.
so I'm gonna put a check mark and we're gonna keep reading just in case, cause you have to evaluate all the answer choices. So now we're gonna go to C. Retailers with in-person and online stores should charge the same price for a given product in both places. What does everyone think about this one?
I'm seeing a strong like no
no.
and furrowed brows from Carolina.
No.
I'm seeing no from Evan Gonzalez. Guys, if you have an immediate
No, no.
like visceral reaction, you're like, what's going on? It's probably because it's not related to whatever was going on in the
Alright,
past.
so based on your guys' answers, I'm gonna cross that one out. Alright, now D, online retailers may be able to raise the prices they charge for products that are only available online. You guys know? I'm seeing
I'm seeing
a bunch
strong
of
no's.
negative.
Carolina again with the eyebrows, guys, like if you, no, I'm serious, cause this happened, okay, so this happened with our in-person people too, right? I would ask them, I would like mention an answer choice and they would immediately give me like a really confused face, guys. Your eyebrows are not gonna do you dirty, if you see something in the answer choices that is completely unrelated to what the passage is talking about, you know right off the bat, it's wrong, right? So over here and over here, right, they're talking about charging prices, right? These are suggestions, right? So this is like, oh, may be able to raise prices, should charge the same price, right? First of all, this is talking about like value and how much just the participants would pay. There's nothing here about payment from the store side, right? So if this had said like, the retailers may make use of participants of their willingness to spend more money. Okay, maybe that could be the answer, maybe that's fine. But there's nothing with this relationship in the entire passage, so those should be like automatically eliminate, so yes, your answer is B. Right, so you guys did awesome with this question.
So yeah, piggybacking on what Abraham said, always trust your gut, cause most of the time it's not gonna do you wrong. I will say though, there is like situations where you should read all the answer choices, even if you get like a
I
good
agree.
feeling from one. Cause the SAT does like to trick you, and there's multiple multiple questions where I've gotten that have given two answer choices that are true, but there's one that's, there's always one that is more relevant to the topic than the other.
Yeah, a lot of the
So-
time, they won't give you one, they won't give you like the number two option won't be wrong.
Right.
It just won't be better than like the correct answer, right? So that's how they kind of want to confuse
So,
you a little
like,
bit.
For example, back here in this question, right? Here, like, it was pretty obvious just because it was like an isolated incident, just because you guys like obviously like crossed out all the other ones. But like hypothetically speaking, let's say
D. Like honestly, okay, look, D, no, look, D. I'm gonna give you the example of D, right? If I know that people are gonna buy less online, I might raise the prices because I'm like, okay, then every sale is gonna make me more money to compensate for the fact that I'm getting less sales, right? I could theoretically assume that, I might make that choice as like a marketer or something. But it's, notice how I had to reach for that, right? Notice how I had to bring in, like, I had to start like thinking like a marketer, that's not what the SAT wants you to do, okay? They're gonna kind of give stuff that's related to the passage itself, and then again, here's the explanation. It's pretty simple, this question wasn't bad, we're gonna move on, I mean, do we wanna prevent, we have like 24 minutes-ish. So I'm gonna move on to the medium difficulty, okay?
If I think one medium,
Okay,
we're moving on.
let's go for this one, but it's okay, if you guys have the answer, it's fine. I feel like this question is good because it's one that. It has a lot of information, but once you break it down, it's really not bad, so you gotta read that with them.
For this one, actually, does anyone wanna read this, just so we can have like participation from people on Zoom? Nobody? Alright, nobody seems excited to read this, okay, I'll read it. So, here, Dutch painters in the 16th and 17th centuries often showed tables filled with large wheels of cheese or carved shards of butter. Some art historians, knowing that dairy products were a major component of the Dutch diet, interpret these as depictions as reflections of everyday Dutch eating habits. However, a group of researchers recently reviewed hundreds of food-related paintings and found that lemons, which can only be acquired in the Netherlands at great cost, since they had to be imported from warmer climates, featured Dutch paintings of the period more than 3 times as frequent as dairy products do, thereby casting doubt on that idea. So, the best way to approach this question is, here it is making a claim, so the first sentence here is making a claim, so here it's saying, Dutch painters in the 16th century, Dutch painters in the 16th century and 17th century often showed tables filled with large wheels of cheese or carved shards of butter. Also known pretty much as dairy, so some art historians noted that dairy products were making components of the Dutch diet. Interpret these depictions as reflections of everyday Dutch eating habits, alright? So that's the first claim, right? But then here comes the word however. However shows you that whatever's about to come after the word however. What? Alright. However pretty much is telling you that whatever's about to come after this word is pretty much the opposite and proven wrong of whatever came first. So, however, a group of researchers recently reviewed hundreds of food-related paintings and found that lemons, which can only be acquired in the Netherlands at great cost, since they had to be imported from warmer climates, featured Dutch paintings of the period more than 3 times as frequent as dairy products do, thereby casting down on that idea. So this goes to show you, it's pretty much telling you that lemons were actually in more paintings than were dairy products, as here it was stated that dairy products were a major component of the Dutch diet, because art historians noted that. And then here it comes to that answer choices, so we're gonna go through it together. Give me a thumbs up if you think it's right, give me a thumbs down, I guess, if you think it's wrong. So first let's go with A. Dairy products were more significant component of the Dutch diet of the period than lemons were. So what do people think about that one? I'm seeing thumbs down, so okay,
I'm seeing a maybe.
I'm seeing a maybe. I saw yes in the chat, but I'm getting mostly negative answers here, so I'm gonna put a maybe. A maybe. So I'm gonna do a little squeeze line, a maybe. Food was a more popular subject among Dutch painters than it was among painters from other countries at the time. I'm getting no's. Alright guys, so yeah, cross it out. Pretty much, yeah, it is no because it has nothing to do with it because wait, I'm forgetting word in English now. Oh, because yeah, it doesn't ever bring up painters from other countries at the time, so there's no like, although it could be true, again, like we were talking about earlier, like if it has no correlation to the passage, like it doesn't specifically sit in the passage, then I would pick it, so yeah. Here comes C, depictions of food in Dutch paintings of the period should be taken as realistic representations of Dutch eating habits. What do you guys think? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Maybes. I'm saying thumbs up and a maybe.
So I'm gonna do a maybe. Move the line. Alright. Dutch painters of the period may have depicted foods for symbolic reasons rather than to show what Dutch people typically ate. Thumbs down?
That one's a strong one.
That one's strong though? Alright, I'm gonna put an X. Alright, so between H and C. Dairy products were more significant component of the Dutch diet of the period than lemons were, and depictions of food in Dutch paintings of the period should be taken as realistic representations of Dutch eating habits. So again, just reading both questions, which one do you guys think it is? Maybe type it or say it.
Seeing C.
Seeing C from Evander. Evander is a smart child.
Alright, I'm gonna take over for a little bit here just for this last part, because I wanna show something real quick. Notice how it says, firstly, this is what I told you guys before, so the hyphens here. So these, the comma pair, the parentheses pair, that means that from here to here is gonna be information on the lemons, right? So if we're saying here that lemons, that like few people had access to lemons because it was hard, because it could only be acquired at a great cost, it was expensive, right? That means not a lot of people have them. So if over here, we're claiming that, these paintings are representing what everyday people had, but now we're saying, oh, lemons actually were something that were very exclusive, but they were everywhere in the paintings. Then here, we're asking for something that casts doubt, well, it casts doubt on the idea that these depictions were realistic, because it doesn't make sense to say that it's realistic that, lemons were featured in everyday Dutch eating habits. If only like the royals and, maybe like a few people in court had access to them, right? If they were exclusive, then this isn't a representation of what the everyday commoner had, right? And then what's the other maybe? So the other one is here. The issue with this is that this is the passage, right? Like it does say that dairy products were very like significant and that they were in the Dutch diet probably more. Because it says that lemons were, only acquired at a great cost, so these were more exclusive. But this is a fact as opposed to an inference. This isn't a conclusion that you're really drawing from the passage. This is something that's in there, right? So the point of this is kind of like to confuse you, because they're shoving it in there. They know that you kind of know this, but this isn't an inference that you're, kind of getting. And it's also not something that fits this relationship, because you're not casting doubt on it, right? This is official, it's stated, it's a fact. So that's kind of how you'd approach that one.
So yeah, that's one of the questions that like, yes, I would like read through all the answer choices, even though like, cause a lot of you guys have like a strong feeling towards A, like, where you guys thought it was A. But, you also have to read the whole question, be sure to like, read everything, because, A is true, it is a true statement. But since it was casting doubt and that wasn't casting doubt, then,
Yes, we do.
Yeah, don't get used to like, I mean, it's great that if you see keywords, like to really spot them out, so if you see like however in this last sentence, make sure you like take note of it, you say but as well. But in this case, it's like cast doubt. If you're skimming through and you don't see that, and you think, okay, well, something that's definitively true, okay, well, that's A, you're gonna get it wrong, and not because you didn't know it, but because you didn't read the whole question, right? So we wanna get you guys used to these things so you guys don't make these like easy mistakes. We're gonna move on to the hard difficulty.
just another tip, 99% of the time, the most important part of the question is the last part, so. I would definitely pay more attention, like close attention to that.
Yeah, and
But-
also, like I said before. You can ignore this,
Yeah,
you can completely ignore that, if you spend your time reading that on every single question, when they're all gonna have that, like this statement right here. All this I'm doing is wasting a few seconds, and I know that you guys might like look at it and think like, okay, well, that's 3 seconds, that takes me to read that. If you read that on every inference question, and there are, let's say, like 8 inference questions on the test. Then you're gonna be wasting like what? Like half a minute on something like that, and that half a minute could literally be the time that you need to answer another extra question and get another extra point, right? So you wanna think of it that way, you don't wanna waste time if you can cut corners. So let's go over this one, I wanna kinda skip to the hard difficulty, cause we have like 20-ish, 15 to 20-ish minutes left. 10:30? No, it's not 30, it's 10:40. Really? Okay, update 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Well-
we'll see if we can do good questions,
We'll see if we can
okay?
do two, but
We're
we'll,
gonna strive
we'll
for
look
one.
at- okay, so. Something I wanna point out about hard questions. If they say periods, a lot of hard questions are gonna mention periods, so times, dates, stuff like that. A lot of the time it's gonna be actually important on these hard questions, and the reason that is gonna be kind of important, I'll show you guys later when we get the answer choices. But it's because a lot of these are gonna be inferences that maybe they're correct, but they don't go with the timeline, right? So you kind of wanna be forming maybe like a mental timeline or just taking note of these dates, okay? So in the early 19th century, some Euro-American farmers in the northeastern United States used agricultural techniques developed by the Haudenosaunee, girl, I'm not gonna try to do that, Iroquois people, centuries earlier. But it seems that few of those farmers had actually seen the Haudenosaunee farms firsthand, okay? So what is it saying? So from here to here, it's just saying that a lot of Euro-American farmers, they use these techniques, they use the techniques from this certain group called like the I'm gonna use the Iroquois because I can't pronounce that. From the Iroquois, but you had actually seen them, so they're somehow getting these techniques, we don't know how, okay? That's what the first part is saying. Barring the possibility of several farmers of the same era independently developing techniques that the Haudenosaunee people had already invented, these facts most strongly suggest that. This sentence I know seems like a lot, I know it's a little wordy, right? But if you see barring the possibility, if you're barred from something, something is barred off, it means that you're, ignoring it, right? You're avoiding it, you can't access it, right? So this is saying, if you ignore the possibility that several people in the same time independently got these techniques, so you're saying only the Iroquois had this technique, okay? They were the source of it, so you can't get it any other way. It's not that you were in your little farm at home and you thought of the technique yourself, no. The only way you could get it was from this group, okay? Then this strongly suggests what? So, I know this is a little bit of a hard passage to understand, but we just broke it down. So let's go through each answer really quickly. So A, those farmers learned the techniques from other people who were more directly influenced by the Renaissance practices. How do we feel about that one? Okay, I'm seeing a thumbs up from Evander. I'm seeing like maybe some like slight head shaking, like a maybe not, maybe no. We'll put that as a little maybe meaning yes for Evander. B, the crops typically cultivated by Euro-American farmers in the northeastern United States were not well suited to Haudenosaunee farming techniques. How do you feel about that? I'm seeing a strong no. I'm seeing okay. I don't know how you did that, ZGL, but I like it. Seeing no in the chat as well. Okay, I agree. So this is a no. No, that he did like an X in the Zoom. I don't know how he did that, but that was pretty cool. So I agree, guys. Again, there are going to be some answers that you can kind of just eliminate from actual content. So there's nothing in here about whether or not the crops were actually suited to these techniques. There's nothing in here about whether they adjusted well or anything. It's just talking about the fact that they were techniques developed by this group. They had them, and other groups kind of started adopting them some way somehow. That's what the passage is talking about. So this whole thing about crops, not relevant. C. Haudenosaunee farming techniques were widely used in regions outside the northeastern United States. I'm seeing a straight up no from Krishna immediately, like not even like 2 minutes. Okay, I'm seeing a strong no from Camilla as well. Y'all are gonna have to teach me to do that X thing. Evan too, I don't know how to do that X thing, but
I'm gonna do it.
okay, Kimberly's gonna try to do that. I love that. I agree, guys. Like, first of all, not relevant. Because first things first, this is only talking about northeastern US. So not only is it not relevant, there's just no information on it. Well, that's a big fat X. And then let's see D. Euro-American farmers only began to recognize the benefits of Haudenosaunee farming techniques late in the 19th century. How do you feel about that?
That's high.
I'm seeing X's.
I
Guys,
saw furrowed eyebrow.
right over here. Exactly, furrowed eyebrow, guys. Late in the 19th century. Why did I point this out? Because if you're making an inference, if you're trying to make this logical conclusion, you're not gonna go out to the time period, right? If I tell you guys, in the past 10 years, prices have shot up like crazy, and then I go, but funny story, in the 1960s, they were fine. That's not relevant, right? So this is again not relevant. And the reason I want to point this out is because this question has a really, really weird last sentence, right? Because it's really long. So barring the possibility of several farmers, so you might get lost just reading this last thing, and you might be like, okay, like, where's my head at? What am I doing? But if you like replace the word with things that you're more familiar with, so if you just replace this with ignoring, and maybe take out the possibility, and you go ignoring that several farmers, it makes it a lot easier for you to read. And as long as you read and you understand what you're being asked, questions like this become 10 times easier. So don't worry too much if you see a lot of weird terminology. Also, again, like I said before, you could have very easily, like, you could have said H. You could have said Iroquois, if you thought like it. You could like, all of this, like, trying to read that would have taken me more time than if I had just replaced that with H, right? Again, the SAT, part of what makes it difficult is you have to cut the time so it works for you. And if you know that you take a while taking, breaking down each answer, then you're gonna wanna cut corners where you can. Let's move on. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have much time left. Do you guys want to do the last question?
Go into the vocab. We have vocab.
Okay,
Okay,
guys,
guys.
want vocab or do
We
the
have
last?
we have a vocab left, and since we covered this for 2 classes and we don't want to bombard you with it, we're gonna be, is it already posted or did we wait until today to do the slides? Okay, the slides are posted already. We're gonna be skipping to one last vocab question that we had, kind of like to close off, because we're gonna be switching in 5 minutes. So again, the answers are there for you. So yeah, we have a little exit ticket for you guys. It's difficulty 3, but don't let that scare you. It's 1 question, so let's do it really fast. And I mean, I hope it was good for you guys. Also, if you ever like go to leave the session and maybe like at the end of the entire like tutoring or at the end of like the reading section, you wanna say something, you wanna speak up and like give us feedback, tell us you didn't get something, or you would have wanted like a better explanation, send it in the chat or like let us know, because at the end of the day, like we're also trying to learn how to like, give you guys the best experience, so if you have any feedback whatsoever or anything that you think like, oh, maybe you guys should explain things a little differently, let us know, okay? I'm stop talking now so you guys can focus without my yap.
Have I been muted this whole time? Yes, okay, sorry, okay, so, what we're gonna do now is that we're gonna go in, we're gonna switch, so the people that are on Zoom. We're eventually gonna come back to this meeting room so we can like record the, like, the math session, so we can upload it, but. Before we do that, we're gonna do a feedback session, so all the people that you're on Zoom, join breakout room number 2, I think it should be open now. Join breakout room number 2. And then the people that are in person, like, we're gonna switch now, so, gather your stuff and we're gonna get in the other room.
Real quick, for everyone on Zoom, the answer was C. Got it? Somebody give me a thumbs up, I feel very unheard right now. Alright, thank you, Evander, I love you. I love you, Evander.
Okay. We're gonna go over the beginning of next class, just so you guys don't get like lost, okay? We'll explain why.
You got it there, hearts up, hearts up.
Wait, look for Evan.
Wait, once more, you did it.
He did it, we love Evander.
Aw.
Alright, bye guys.
Hello.
Breakout room should be open, so join breakout room number 2, number 2. Yes,
You guys have a group class?
yeah, I'll send you, if you don't see me, I'll leave you. Okay. Are you guys able to join breakout room number 2? No? Okay. You do not see it, hold on, let's try it again. Oh, but I just closed the rooms, we're gonna have to. Okay. You guys should be able to like pick breakout room number 2 now. So join breakout room number 2 if you're on Zoom.
Your brother just joined a group.
Join room 1 and join room 1 and tell anyone who's in room 1 to join room 2.
So we're supposed to be here.
You're supposed to be.
This is room 1.
No, this is the meeting room, you're Alright, give me just 1 second while I share the screen. Okay, so today we're gonna be using the same slides that I posted on Google Classroom. You guys should have also received an email from me yesterday with like all the information, so it's also on those slides. It's the same problems from last time, like the same set, cause we had put like a lot of problems on there, we couldn't finish last time, which is fine. Okay, so today's class is actually really important because it covers the really big essentials of slopes, y-intercepts, and how that kind of all intertwines with the SAT and desmos, right? One of the most important things of the SAT is this unit, because a lot of the questions are ultimately going to boil back down to this. Being able to think in terms of functions and how they relate to the real world situations when it comes to the word problems. And then, of course, getting comfortable enough with desmos that we could be doing a lot of different things with desmos, right? And as we're going to be able to see eventually when we start doing some more practice drills and problems, eventually, with desmos, a lot of the things are going to be very counterintuitive eventually if you understand really, really well how graphs work. Because desmos is graphing calculator, understanding the graph becomes sort of like a prerequisite, right? For you to to perform well on the test, right? Okay, so we're gonna annotate and we're gonna work through these problems together. And I want you guys to participate. I'll be asking you guys. The chat is a little far away, so I'm actually gonna open it up so I can see it a little better. If you've never been to that, or the way the rooms are set up, like we have a big TV in the back, and that's where I'm seeing all of you. So if you see me walk to the back, that's why. Let me open the chat for you guys so I can because yeah, I know that on Zoom it's a lot easier to sometimes just type it in the chat. All right. So let's get started.
Excuse me, am I
Yep.
supposed to be in a breakout room?
Say it again.
Breakouts room.
No, the breakout rooms, that's just so the other session is still on Zoom, but they're not in the recording, so it's fine.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to this question, let's read it together. Malik's salary is 25,000. So this is related to the problem that we did last time. So Malik's salary is $25,500 per year, but she expects will increase by a constant amount annually. In 12 years, his salary will have doubled. Assuming salary increases take place only at the end of a full year, how many years must Malik wait until his salary is at least $40,000 annually? All right. So with these word problems, the first step that we should look at is what information are we given? And that's going to help us in being able to then use that information to find an equation maybe, and then work with desmos to figure the problem out, right? So can someone tell me what information are we given in this problem?
We're given Malik's salary, and we're given also the fact that in 12 years it's gonna double.
12 years is gonna double. Awesome. So if his salary right now is $25,500 per year. In 12 years, how much is the salary going to be?
$51K.
$51,000. Awesome. So we know that. What's also something very important that, what's the question asking? What do we want to know?
That it only takes place at the end of a full year. Or
That's more so you don't get confused. It's basically saying that you won't get a salary increase in the middle of the year. So if your answer for this problem, which I'm just gonna tell you now, it is going to be decimal, it's gonna include a decimal. You can't get paid, you can't get a raise at 0.5 of a year, you know what I mean? So the raises only happen until the full year. So for you to get the raise, a whole year would have happened, right? So
oh, okay.
That's important, but that's more so a thing, so you put a whole number. The question here is, how many years must he wait until his salary is at least $40,000 annually? So let's now think about the form of the equation y equals mx plus b, right? So y equals mx plus b. Who remembers from last time what what are the components of the equation? So what does y represent?
Your total.
Your total, right? Our total. What does our m represent?
The slope.
The slope, awesome. What does the b represent?
The y-intercept.
Your y-intercept, which means if you were to think about it in the context of a situation, what does it mean?
How much you start with.
How much you start with, awesome. Your initial, so awesome. So we have this. So let's check other things in the problem that we have and that we need, right? We have the y because that's, in essence, this is an inequality problem, but like it's just easier if you solve it and then just like find the one, like the number that's like one above, like the next whole number up. Because inequality is it's the same thing, but you basically just same steps to solve. It's just gonna tell you like, okay, one is equal to and the other one's like the sign, right? But so we have the total, we have that. That's because they're asking how many years must he wait until his salary is at least $40,000. Awesome. So we have that. So we have 40,000. What else do we have in the mx plus b formula? Evander?
We have everything but the slope.
We have everything but the slope, right? So what is our b in this case? What is our initial value? $25,500. How much money he's making at the beginning, right? So we're looking for a slope. Now, this is where I think this is really important. Let me highlight this for you. In 12 years, so at the beginning I think it was Daniel mentioned that his salary would double. So after 12 years, his salary would be 51,000. So what we're basically doing here is we can take the slope. We can divide the increase in salary because they're telling us it's going to grow consistently, right? It's on an exponential growth of salary. That would be a different thing. Every year, his salary is going to increase by the same amount. So we're dealing with a linear line. So we can basically take the slope of the salary increase, 25,500, right? Because and the reason I'm just going to do it like that, it's because of this. It's because of the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's our slope equation. That's really important. So if we were to plug in the 51,000 that he's going to make in 12 years, minus the 25,500 he makes now, we of course get 25,500, and then the number of years. So hold on. So if we start time now, if we say starting today, what in terms of function, what does that represent? Like the time would equal what? If we're talking about today, 0. Awesome. So that's like one of the things you have to start thinking about. If you're thinking about time, when something starts is 0. So x1 is 0, so it's minus 0. How many years after is the salary doubled? How many years after is the same problem?
12.
12, right? So this is our slope formula basically. 25,500 divided by 12. Right? 25,500 divided by 12. You can use your graphing calculators to on Desmos to find the value of that. So if we go here, we do 25,500. Oops, sorry. You're not supposed to put commas on Desmos. Divided by 12. It tells us that the salary, the slope of the salary is this, 21.25. So what would we put here? It would be 21.25. 25x, right? That's our new equation, right? So this problem, it doesn't like outright gives us points, it doesn't give us anything, but we were able to find the slope using like the constants, right? This problem, I would say, is probably a medium or hard problem on the SAT, because as we're gonna see, solving it is not so difficult. It's finding the information in the problem to solve it that's a little hard. So awesome, we have our equation set up. 40,000 is equal to 2125 plus 25,500. So can you guys go ahead and plug that into decimals and see what you get? All right. What do we get on Desmos for the solution to the equation? $6.82. Awesome. So it's going to take him, X in this case represents how many years it takes for him to get the $40,000 in salary. However, can he get a raise in 6.82 years? Is that possible? Is that possible? No, right? Because they told us he only gets a salary increase at the end of a full year. So how many years will he have to work for him to get a salary above $40,000? 7. Awesome. So the answer to this question is 7, right? Now, as you guys saw, it like doing this like kind of by hand and like sitting through doing the slope, everything by hand is possible. It's not that bad because you have the calculator, but there's an even faster way to do what we just did, right? So that's kind of a long explanation of how we should extract information from the problem. But I want you guys to consider this now. All right, same problem. And this is going to be, I would say, the preferred method for solving most of the word problems. So what you need to do is basically find whenever you get like any sort of information, you can turn that into points on a function, right? So his salary currently is $25,000 per year. So if we were to put that as a point on a function where X is the number of years, because that's what we're looking for, and Y is his salary, what would one of our points be? Awesome. 0 and 25,500. Now, what else? What other point can we extract from the problem that they tell us? 12, 51,000, right? So where do we get those from? Well, we know that currently at time 0 today, his salary is Y 25,500. In 12 years, his salary is going to be double that, right? So it's 51,000. Now, what we're going to be able to do now is go on Desmos. This is going to be one of my favorite tools on Desmos. It saves you a lot of time. This can do a lot of things. If you have at least 2 points on a function, you're going to be able to basically graph out the entire line. It's going to graph out the entire line from here to infinity. And then it's also going to be able to provide you with all the information, the slope, the y-intercept. It's going to do the work for you. So we have those 2 points. And you're going to write the word table onto Desmos. So you see table, and then you're going to plug in this basic. So we're going to have At time zero, his salary was $25,500. At time 12, his salary was $51,000. You're gonna click enter, and then you're gonna click this little button that has like the line and the dots. And it's gonna create a linear regression. What it's going to do automatically for you is that it's going to graph the function for you. And then you're going to get on there the specific information about the function. So by just grabbing the 2 points, we automatically already have the equation to our line. So we just saved all that hassle of like thinking about, well, how do we get to the next point? How do we take the slope? All of that time, right? And in the SAT, especially in the math section, time is gold, right? The least, like something like this, look how much time you saved. Because of how hard, okay, so what College Board did was, when the test was first introduced, they kind of kept some of the questions very similar to what the old SAT was. When you had a part that was without calculator and a part with calculator. Now that you have the calculator, they expect you to use the calculator for problems like this when they start thinking about time. And then if you want to score, if you want to score in the higher echelons of like, I would say anywhere from a 700 plus, you're going to need to like use the time, like save time with the calculator to then be able to like do some of the really, really hard problems that are at the end of the test, right? So using the calculator is going to save you so much time because look how much we did just to get the formula, and all we would have to do now is go in and plug in for what they're actually asking us for. So the 40,000 is equal to the function that they gave us, which is the same one we found, plus 25,500, and then you would zoom in, and then you can look and find the solution at the intersection, right? So that is going to save you a lot of time. So the table trick, we're going to practice that a lot today because it has a lot to do with slopes, y-intercepts, and all of that, right? Again, and like I would say a majority of the algebra section has to do with all of this, right? And okay, so now does this mean that we should forget about formulas and like not study any formulas? No. It's important that you know the formulas and how they work because sometimes they're gonna just give you problems or they ask you like, okay, here is like here's a couple points or whatever, and they're gonna give you like the answer that is like the answer choice is like plugged into the formula per se, right? So you need to know how the formulas look and you need to know how to work with them. But in most cases, you're going to be able to use just like Desmos to solve problems, right? We're going to do a couple of examples that I want you guys to practice with. Get some practice with Desmos. So these should be already on your packets. This one right here. So I'll give you guys a minute and a half, which is what you're going to get on the test for each question. I want you guys to think about the strategies we just used with the table method and how you could apply it to this problem. And then I'll pick on one of you guys so you guys can solve it and show us. Once you have an answer, you can give me like a thumbs up in the chat, or, you know, a thumbs up on Zoom. Okay, awesome. Let's go with Camila.
Okay, so basically what I did was first I did 400 minus 220, which is 180. And then I divided it by 3 and I got 60. And then I like made an equation. I said 220 plus 60x minus 120. And then I simplified it and I got 60x plus 100. So I got A.
Okay, awesome. Can you explain to everyone why you would subtract the why would you subtract the 120?
The what?
Why you would subtract the 120? Why would we subtract the 120?
Oh, well, I just cause I just combined like terms.
Right. So the reason that you would subtract the 120 is because think about it like this. So you're hiring this service, right? What they basically want you to do is take account for the first 2 hours being included, but write an equation that you can just plug in the total number of hours and it's gonna give you how much you're going to pay, right? It's because they tell you the first 2 hours are gonna cost 220. The hourly rate that you're paying the I don't know what is this case, a window per person, right? The hourly rate is just the same, right? So the 120, we subtract the 120 because from those first 2 hours, our hourly rate is $60. We have to take out to find the y-intercept, we have to take out the 2 hours of work that we paid him that we would have paid him regularly, and that's gonna tell us what the one-time fee was for those first 2 hours, right? So that's how we get the minus 120. So that's a good way, and that's the right answer. It would be 60x plus 100. Now, another way to do this, did anyone do it did anyone use the table to solve this?
Yeah, I use Desmos.
Okay, Krishna, can you like guide us through how to use that on Desmos?
Yes. So first I put obviously the table so I could show up. And then for the points that I used 2, comma 220. And then I also used 5, comma 400.
Awesome, and then you press Russian.
And then it gave me that equation.
It gives you the equation right there, right? So, both ways work, right? So always do what you feel the most comfortable. But as we can see here, like it literally took us like just identifying the points, plugging them into the table, and then spit out an answer for us, right? So it's definitely going to be a lot faster, right? But ultimately, the most important part is feeling good with like your answer and making sure it's correct, right? For these type of problems, I would recommend always the table if you're able to like, quickly identify the points or do some manipulation. Now, something else, because of the way this works, the way that Desmos does it, you need to find any 2 points, right? Like, let's suppose that they give you 1 point and the slope. You could just like add 1 to the x and then add both the slope to the y, and then find the next point, and then graph that, and then you could find any other point that's on that line, because it's automatically going to populate for you, right? So, that's something that you're gonna see with like I think one of the other problems. That's right. All right. Well, I think you guys totally couldn't see what I was writing. Oops. I have to remember to annotate on Zoom. All right. Hold on. Let me make sure that I'm annotating. Okay. Okay. Let's look at this next problem. So I'll give you guys a minute to do it. Once you're done with the problem, give a thumbs up. All right. Any answers yet? We're still working on it. It's a longer one. I'll give you guys a little bit. Okay, I'll give you guys a bit more time. All right, let's see. A bit more time for me to still working. All right. Evander, can you guide us through the what steps he took? Yeah.
Okay. So we have. So if I had Desmos open, I would use a table, but I don't have Desmos open because I'm lazy and I don't want to open the tab or something. So first I found the slope. I said 19350 is equal to 5m, m being the slope, plus 24,000. And then I subtract 24,000 from both sides, divide by 5, and I get the slope, which is negative 930. And then I plug that in because we're trying to find what is the total number of hours Hector will have been using the auger since da 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 da. So then I make the equation negative 930x plus 24,000 equals 12,840. Subtract 24,000 from both sides, divide by negative 930, and you get 12.
Correct. So the answer is 12. So what Evander did was basically he did it by hand. He found the slopes, and then he found the y-intercept, and then he basically went down to find how many hours it would take to go down and find the answer, right? Which is one way to do it. The way to do it with Desmos would be the table, which on the day of the test you'll have Desmos open. So Okay, what are, if anyone did it with the table, can someone tell me what the 2 points that you used would be?
0, 24,000 and 5 and 19,350.
Awesome. 5 and 19. Oops. 5 and 19. Awesome. So we did this and makes our line. It gets the same equation that Avender found. So then. Awesome, we have our line, and then you have 2 options here, so. You could A, scroll through decimals and scroll till you find the Y value being the 12 or whatever the number is. 12,480, or we could just plug it in. I think it's a little bit easier, so let's just do that. 12,840, right? And we use the equation that is right here. We use this equation, so. 12,840 is equal to negative 930x plus 2,400. Giving us the answer 12, right? So again, we got back to the same answer. 9 times out of 10, decimals is going to be the quickest way. There is some times where doing things by hand might save you time, or there's times that unfortunately decimals won't be able to do us any help, right? So that's great. Okay, last question of this type. I want you guys, if you guys can, try to use the table method for this one. This is gonna require a bit of like additional work in the sense that the second point is not given to you, so you just have to like find a second point so that you can grab. When you're done, give me a thumbs up. All right. How are we doing with answers? Good. Alright, Krishna. Guidance to this one.
So I actually didn't know what points to put in the table. I kind of just like eyeballed it and like read what could be the equation.
So, how did you eyeball it?
So since it says that it's 270 for the first day and 135 for each additional day, the 135 would technically be the slope because it's like it keeps increasing and increasing. And then the 270 is just used once, so that would be the B. So I think the answer is C.
Okay. Is there anyone that disagrees with that? Okay, Evander. Evander is giving us a hard no. Okay, Evander. What is wrong about that answer choice?
The thing that is wrong with that is that, remember, time is like 0th day, first day, second day. That's what we're talking about when we talk about a function. So 270 is on the first day. So the point is 1, 270, not 0, 270. So the points I would plug in, I didn't use Desmos, but if I was, it would be 1, 270, and 2, 405. And then it would spit that out. The correct answer, I think, which would be D.
So, Krishna, the big thing, so you're on the right track. I like your thinking with the slope. Now, with the y-intercept, it's kind of like that first example that we did, where you have to take into account that the first day you have to take out what you would have paid for the hour for that, right? To find your y-intercept, right? Because you're getting an hour, you're getting an hour of, or you're getting the day of whatever it is. What is it? You're renting a backhoe. So you get a day of rental plus the one-time fee that you pay, right? So we take out the cost of the 1-day rental, which would be $135 to then find what the y-intercept would be. So because for example, if you did that 135. If you did the 270, right, minus the 135, you would get 135. So then that's what makes the answer true. So does that make sense? Okay, and then to explain the way that Evan got the last point. So we know that on the first day it cost us 270, right? So we could just say if it increases by 135 each day, then we could just say it's 270 plus 135, giving us 405, and then we can plug in the 2 points, all right? Does that make sense with everyone? Awesome. Moving on. Okay, so building graphs. So it's basically what we've been doing. I want you guys to try this out. I'm gonna give you guys, before we do that, important equations you need to know. But for something like this, it's just easier to just like use the depth, right? So, the first equation you need to know: y minus y1 is equal to mx minus x1, where x1, y1 is any point on the line. Y and x are variables, like the ones that don't have the one, and then m is your slope, right? So I would say, when would you need to use this? 9 times out of 10, it's because they're gonna give you an answer choice that tells you, okay, this line has a slope of this much, and it has these points. Which of the following represents an equation of a line? Like sometimes they'll put the answer choices as in that formula. So like they want you to just plug in the slope and the points, right? In some cases, they're gonna want you to actually give them the simplified equation, right? So you could either go through everything, find the slope, and then plug in using the 1 point that you have, or you can use Desmos, right? So can anyone tell me how you would solve this on Desmos? Carolina?
Yeah, so when putting it in Desmos, I put first the 2 points because Desmo automatically labels them. And well, for me, when I first look at the points, I obviously can see it's positive, so it's not negative. So that automatically eliminates A and B because it starts with a negative slope and it has to be positive. And then I just plugged in the other two and it gave me D.
Awesome, sounds good. So that's one way to do it. If you drew just where, so you did this basically, like you plugged in -3, comma, and 1, like that. Yeah. Okay, so that's a good way to do it, and then you'll be able to like use process elimination, which is actually like the next thing we're gonna talk about. We're actually, there's one more thing before it gets to that, but, so that's one way, and then, or you can use the table. And then the table automatically does it for you. You just plug in those 2 points into your table, and it's gonna give you the equation right there. So remember the table trick. You just write in the word table onto decimals, and then the table will ship up, right? So awesome. Does that make sense with everyone? X plus 2, the answer is 0. So multiple ways to get to one same answer, that's fine. Just as long as you get to the answer, is most important part. All right. Quick word on slopes and y-intercepts. So when it comes to the slopes, you're going to be hearing a lot of, for this type of problem, you might hear a lot the words parallel and the words perpendicular. We have to know what these mean. Like, we have to know what these mean graphically, of course, but then also what they mean in terms of the slopes and the equations of the line. So when a line is parallel, it means that it has the same slope, right? And it also means, by extension, that the lines are never going to intersect. Let's just imagine in our imagination that is a straight line. That is parallel to that, right? They're going to be growing at the same rate, right? It's like thinking about, like, okay, think about it like this. An example I like to give, like, let's suppose that you and a friend are working on a test, right? And you're both doing 5 questions every day, right? Or working an assignment. Both of you do 5 questions every day. But your friend, he got ahead before you guys started, before you started, he was already ahead 5 questions, right? Are you guys ever going to be on the same question at the same time? No, because you guys are doing the same amount of questions, right? But you're 5 questions behind. You're never going to be at the same question every time, at the same time, because your slopes are the same, basically. Your lines are going to be parallel as far as like you thinking of you doing the questions, and you're never going to intersect, right? So when the slopes are the same, the line is parallel, and they will never intersect. Perpendicular is different. A perpendicular line is simply just a line that is at a 90-degree angle once you like see it. So like you like never like whenever you do something like this for perpendicular lines, never like try to find the 90-degree angle or stuff because it's like a little hard to do like with decimals in the calculator. Instead, what you're going to use is use the rule. -1 over slope is going to give us the perpendicular line slope. -1 over slope. So a parallel line is going to have the same. The parallel line is just going to be the same slope. So if I have a parallel line with a slope of 5, what's going to be the slope of the parallel line? 5, also. If I have a parallel line with a slope of 1 million, what's going to be the slope? 1 million, awesome. So slopes that are the same are going to be parallel. Perpendicular lines, on the other hand, are going to be a little different. So the perpendicular lines are just going to be 1 over the slope. So -1, the negative reciprocal. So it's going to be -1 over slope. So if one line has a slope of 3, what is the slope of the perpendicular line? -1 over 3. Awesome. -1 over 3. Right? What if I had a slope of 5 over 4? What's my perpendicular slope? -4/5, awesome. Right? So it's just putting it into your head, slopes that are the same or parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular line, -1 over the slope, right? So you're gonna flip the slope, okay. Last thing from me before we go to Anthony, who's gonna guide you through the problems for this set. Let's talk about this, so. I forgot who said it, and someone said it earlier. But they eliminated it based on how the slopes and the thing sloped, right? This is pretty simple, like, there's only 4 possible combinations of lines on a linear graph. You can either have a line with a positive slope, so your positive slope is gonna be going up and a positive y-intercept, which means that it's gonna touch the y-axis at a point above 0, right? So positive and above 0. You're gonna have a positive slope with a negative y-intercept. It's gonna be positive, but it's gonna increase, it's gonna touch the y-intercept below the x-axis. Same thing with a negative slope, positive y-intercept. And a negative slope and a negative y-intercept, right? So sometimes what the SLT would do is that they're literally just going to give you like a situation. And like, they won't even give you like a numbered graph, they'll just give you a graph. Like what I just drew on there, they'll tell you which of the following graphs can it be. You'll be able to tell, because if you know like the sign of the slope and the y-intercept, you'll be able to know what the graph can actually look like, right? So what if I told you which of the following could be the graph of y equals -300x plus 25? Which one would it be? Let's call this A, B, C, or D. So I see a lot of C's, awesome. So yeah, exactly. So being able to like see stuff like that, or if like you see an equation like this, and maybe the graph is even numbered, you'll be able to immediately tell, okay, this has a negative slope, these slopes are positive, I can eliminate the ones that are positive, and then narrow down the wrong, right? The graph questions are actually really easy. I would say the one thing I would be careful with is, yeah, the other thing is you guys have to read the questions very carefully, right? There might be some important information that you might skip. So for example, they could tell you which of the following graphs is perpendicular to the graph, right? You didn't read the perpendicular graph, you're like, oh, I don't know, like, is this the graph that I'm graphing, you know what I mean? Or like you graph the one they gave you instead of the perpendicular, which is what they were asking for. Things like that is just a reading comprehension thing. But usually, like for graph questions, as you guys are going to be able to see, holy crap, it's raining cats and dogs. You'll be able to see like immediately what answer choice it is by elimination, right? All right, Tony, you're up. So Tony is going to go through and help you guys now with going through some of these problem sets with the calculator and going through some more practice. All right.
All right. So in these types of questions, I definitely. With these types of questions, I want you guys to be really accustomed to using this table because it's honestly really like useful, and it honestly can save you so much time because solving or getting the equation for a line and such it's such kind of a tedious process because you have to find the slope, then plug in x and y, everything just to find that line, when you could literally just put in these points and it literally tells you the slope and the y-intercepts in like 5 seconds. So you definitely should not be underestimating this resource. But so here the question asks, line A passes through the coordinate points or parentheses -2/5, 0 and 0, 1. Which of the following lines will line A never issue? So I want you to take a second to kind of gauge what the question is asking, you know? Alright, so. It says line A passes through these coordinate points, right? And then it tells us. Or it tells like line A, that is line A. Then it gives us 4 different lines and it asks us which of the following lines will line A ever intersect. So now we have to think about lines that intersect. So there's 3 types of kind of ways that 2 lines can intersect, right? They can either have one intersection. So that's one intersection right here, I can see it. That's an intersection. That's 1, right? There can be infinitely many if it's the same line because line's just going over itself, you know? It's infinitely many because each of those points on each line are equal to each other, infinite. So that's infinite, right? They're the same line, right? Then there is 0 intersections. And for there to be 0 intersections, their slopes have to be the same. So M represents slope. The slopes of the 2 lines have to be the same, right? Because imagine if the slopes have 2 different, or if the lines have 2 different slopes, then eventually they're gonna be even if they're same. Super. Dude. Question? No, we should do it multiple. Alright. So. For it says they never intersect, right? So there has to be no intersections. So,
Gotta remember it's parallel, they never intersect.
yeah, or if they never intersect, it's parallel. So these lines have to be parallel and they have the same slope. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna find the slope of line A, and then we're gonna find the slope of these lines in the answer choices, and then see which of them have the same slope.
Why is it presumption like that?
Or 11. Why is this being?
This is. Where's, you know what you get. Okay. Are you guys understanding? Yes, no, maybe so.
Because. Don't worry. That's, what did I do with that? No, okay. So, alright, here. You put it into the table, remember, you always have to click this little symbol here next to the 1. So you click that. And then. You can see here, it gives you the equation for the line, y equals 2.5x plus 1. So, we know that. We know that the equation of a line y equals mx plus b. The slope is represented by m. So here the slope will be 2.5. Alright. So
Excuse me,
now.
I'm sorry, but I can't understand a single damn word you're saying because. Alright, I'm tired. I'm trying my best, but I can't understand.
Sorry?
I'm a stomach duck right now.
I'm sorry, I can't really hear you, but try just to pay attention and see if you can just be able to understand this question.
I can't understand a single word you're saying, okay? I trying, but I can't. Okay, I'm so tired.
Alright, I'm sorry, maybe try to up your volume or something, but alright, so now I'm gonna try to find the slopes of each of these lines. And see if they're gonna be 2.5, right? Because we saw that the slope of line A is 2.5. So. For this first one, for A. I'm just gonna find 2 points and take the slope. So. This. Oh, let me clear. For A, I can definitely plot a point right here for 0, -1. And 0, -1. Right, and then also. One here.
So if I do slope formula, that's going to be 1 minus -1. I'm assuming that this y2 is. I'm just gonna write these. I always find it helpful when I'm doing slope formula to write down which one's x1, y1, and which one's x2, y2. Y minus -1 over 5 minus 0, right? And that's going to end up being 2/5. And 2/5 is not 2.5, so. So. Now. So. Now that I'm actually looking at them, I can actually take off these two, because these have negative slopes, you see. They're going this way. Right? That means that their slopes are negative. This 2.5 is positive, so it has to be A or B. So now I'm also taking out A, I can kind of already tell it's B, but I'm going to check the slope just to make sure. So here I see the point -1, 0. And also 1, 5. So I'm gonna label this is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2, so I can use the formula. 5 minus 0 over 1 minus -1 equals 5/2. And 5/2 is equal to 2.5, right? So that means that B is going here and right? So let me just press here. So let me just recap for this question. It gave us line, and then it's asking us with which line will it never intersect. So we had to find a line that's parallel. So if we like kind of see 0, 1 and -2/5, 0. There, we'll kind of end up being like this kind of, you can kind of try to visualize it just to make the answer make more sense to you, but we're gonna go ahead and move on to question 12 now. So this is another one. They're all linear functions, but in the xy plane, the point 4, 7 lies on the line T, right? So it is introducing a line T, which is perpendicular to the line y equals -4/3 x plus 6. So it's giving us information about the slope, right? Because it gives us the equation of a line. So it gives us line T's slope and y-intercept. And then it's telling us that this line T is perpendicular to that line that it gave us the equation. So that tells us the slope. Then it tells us a point, so we can use that to make the equation, right? So we could either use point slope or just use the y equals mx plus b format. I like to just find the slope and then plug in points to the y equals mx plus b format. But you can also use point slope form, right? I'll show both of those here. But first, either way, we have to find the slope, right? So if the line is perpendicular to that line, where this line y equals -4/3 x plus 6, right? This is the slope, right? The slope is -4/3. If the line T is perpendicular to this equation, then the slope of line T is gonna be -1 over -4/3, which is gonna end up being 3/4. So we already know that our slope is gonna end up being 3/4. So we can eliminate B and E. And then 3/4, right? So now we have two options. We can plug in, or we can put it into the point flow formula, right? Y minus y1 equals
m of x minus x1. And then we can kind of simplify it to get it in the form, to isolate y and get it in the form of question 12, right? But what you can also do, you can write out y equals mx plus b. And note that the m term is gonna be 3/4 because that's the slope we found. And then I can just put plus b, and then I'll plug in that 0.47 in xy. So 7, or I'll do it over here. 7 equals 3/4 x, or 3/4 4, right? Because that's x plus b, right? So f goes out, 7 equals 3 plus b. So I can see that b equals 4, right? And so since b equals 4, the line is equal to y equals 3/4 x plus 4, which is gonna go ahead and be 8. So now, so now this is kind of an example of kind of what you'll see on the SAT, right? Because this is kind of the same topic of linear equations, right? So it shows up. There can be kind of topics on the same question, but for one, you would kind of be able to use a calculator more easily because maybe you could, or Desmos more easily because you could use maybe flow formula with this. Then also with this one too, so either of these are really, like, you can use Desmos alone for them. Cause like we ended up using slope formula for each of them on 11, but it kind of just shows you that. You gotta make some questions on the SAT and some may need calculators, some may not, or specifically with Desmos, and you need to be able to recognize when you can or can't use them. Or maybe when it will be better. And then here. Alright. Alright, so it says, the graph shows the correlation between air temperature T, so.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can you understand what I'm saying now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, what I was trying to say is that can't understand what you were saying. Okay, I'm trying to, but I can't. Okay, I don't know what you're saying. Okay, I don't know what's particular or anything like that. I just can't.
Sorry, maybe can you like do something to be able to understand this better?
Is like the audio low?
Is it like a technical thing or is it like you're not understanding the explanation?
Okay, thank you.
Just type it in the chat, your concern.
Yeah, I suppose. But, alright, we'll move on with question 13. So the graph shows the correlation between air temperature, T in degrees, or in degrees Fahrenheit, and the number of chirps per minute, C. So it's correlating and showing the relationship between the temperature and the number of chirps per minute, right? So kind of like how often will birds chirp according to how hot it is, right? And that's just like the situation we have here, right? But now it's asking us, which of the following equations represents the line shown in the graph? So it wants us to create a relationship, a linear relationship here for chirps per minute, right? So it wants us to create like a y equals mx plus b, right? But what data or what information it gives us is it gives us a graph, right? So I'm just going to select points here. Right, so I see 65, 100. I see 90, 200. Right, and what I can do, I can just put that in Desmos to get a regression. And just easily get the line as opposed to having to mapping it out. So. We go here, we already have the table, remember, you just literally write table and then. Here, I'll do it again, because you always have to remember to split plus minus. Table, right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put in. 65,100. And 9,200. Right, and then remember, you click this symbol up here on the top left. And it ends up being y equals 4x minus 160. Obviously, if you apply that to this situation, it becomes c equals 4t minus 160. And that's going to be what is found in answer A. So now we can go to question 14 where we see a similar graph, right? And it tells us to ship a box, one company charges a flat fee. So I'm gonna underline that because that's kind of an important like kind of signifier word because it kind of tells me that something might represent like a y-intercept in this situation, you know. And then it says plus an additional charge for each pound the box holds. So it's telling us that there's just a flat fee, but then there's a charge for each pound. So for each pound, the price will increase. So I'm seeing kind of a linear relationship. So it says the graph shows the relationship between the box's weight and the total cost to ship it. So it does show that here, and it shows the line. And so based on the graph, how much would it cost in dollars to ship a 40-pound box? So what the line is showing is the cost corresponding to the weight, right? And the question also is asking us the cost corresponding to the weight. So we can just check the points on the graph. However, the graph only goes up to 10 pounds and the question is asking us 40 pounds. So what we have to do is make an equation for the line and then plug in 40 into the x so that we will be able to see what the cost will be for that specific weight. So I see again, it's a graph. What I'm going to be able to do is just plug in points to the table on decimals and be able to find an equation that I can plug the x into. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Once again, I write table. I look at the graph. I can see the y-intercept is 0,10. I'm just gonna put that. Also kind of helps me for the kind of equation. I know it's going to be a +10. And then I also see 4,16. Right, so I'll go ahead and click that sign again in the top left. And it's gonna go ahead and show me y equals 1.5x plus 10, right? But that's not it. Now we have to use that equation or use that line and find what the cost will be or what y value will be when there's a 40-pound box or when the x is 40. And what we can do, we can plug that into this equation, or what we can do, we can literally search the line here, right? Because it's asking about 40 pounds, that's right here. 40 is going to be 7. So I will go ahead and write in 70 on that box. And go ahead also and just to make sure you know. Never want to be insured, you know? And you can see there that we were able to see that the answer was 70 multiple foods, right? All right. Now this one, 15, it reads. The table shows the percent charge that a certain laptop battery has been after recharging for a given number of minutes, right? if y is the battery's percent charge and x is the number of minutes, which linear equation expresses the relationship between y and x? So it's literally showing us this relationship where x is minutes charged, y is the percent charge, and it's asking us to create a relationship, right? And it literally gives us the table here, right? So this is literally, again, we put in that table the decimals. And we literally just put 10, 15, 30, 34, 41.5. If you notice, you actually only need 2 points for the regression. Because it's just able to, because it's just from 2 points, you're able to make a line. But it says there y equals 1.5x plus 19. So we're just able to see easily that that will be.
You can see, and you remember how to see the annotation.
Oh. The other put was xy. This is what was. So, what are this? Yeah, I've been using it. But yeah, that's gonna end up being 1.5x plus 9. So that's after this one, do you want me to go back to other examples or just it's
Well, it's on 54, so, before we end our Zoom recording, so, okay, we're actually going to, go tell Kimberly that we're gonna do, feedback. We're gonna do the same feedback thing we did, but like now we're gonna like, we're gonna put you, I'm gonna open back up the breakout room. Go in there and then I'll tell them to meet you guys over there, okay? So go to breakout room number 2. Room 2. Is it open? Yeah.